Okay. And I will share. I'm doing these slides, right, Lynn?
Yes,
I assume. Okay.
thank you.
Whoops. Something happened. Huh. Something went wrong.
Okay, try it again.
Okay, let's do that again. Okay, there we are. I clicked and everything disappeared. I'm on the wrong slide. All right. So far in this training, we've looked at 3 of the 4 components of language. We've looked at listening, speaking, and reading. Now we'll look at how writing supports language learning. In this topic, we'll focus on beginning level writing skills and show you how the instructional materials integrate authentic and original writing exercises. Take a moment to review the objectives on the slide. Usually, the writing skills that you need to teach are integrated into the books that you'll use, such as Ventures and Challenger. Every lesson has 1 or more writing activity. We'll show you examples from both of these series. Studies prove that writing supports language learning. Communication has 2 parts, giving information and getting information. Reading and listening are receptive skills. We use them to get information. Speaking and writing are skills used to give information. Both getting and giving information are essential for effective communication. Beginning language learners will need to focus on the physical and mechanical aspects of writing until these skills become second nature. More advanced learners can then put more of their writing efforts into organization, content, and style. Learning to write in a second language is challenging, even when the writing system is the same, but it's even more challenging when the Roman alphabet is new to the student. As you know, some languages are not alphabetic. Chinese uses symbols to represent entire words or phrases. And other languages like Arabic and Russian are alphabetic, but their letters are completely different. In Arabic, you read from right to left. French and Spanish more closely resemble English since they use the same alphabet, but the words and grammar are different. And we've already talked about how letters can make different sounds in other languages. Can anybody tell me what these sentences say? They all say the same thing.
The Russian at least says, I want to write, or I like to write, I think.
That's correct. That's correct. They all say, I like to write. Okay. Writing mechanics cover such things as handwriting and spelling, as well as elements of grammar like capitalization and punctuation. Beginning ESL students who can't read and write their native language or whose language does not use the Roman alphabet will need help in the skill of writing by hand, even though we're at a point where much of our writing consists of typing letters into a device. But there's still many times when we need to fill in a form or write a note by hand. Plus, the citizenship test requires writing a dictated sentence by hand. Also, the act of physically making the letter can help the brain retain and reinforce the new sound. It's good to help students realize that whatever they think and say can be written down. Students often say that they need to learn to spell better in order to improve their writing. And that is important, but try to show them that spelling does not need to be a barrier to starting to write. Beginning students can do very simple writing tasks, such as copying individual words or short sentences. More advanced writing or composition involves brainstorming what you want to say, organizing ideas so that they make sense, creating and revising drafts, providing enough detail to convey the message, and choosing words that will keep the reader interested. Most of that goes beyond what a beginning student is ready to do in a new language. So for this topic, we're going to focus on writing mechanics and very simple composition tasks that will be helpful to our mostly beginning to high beginning ESL students. There's more information on composition in the teaching writing handout. So here are some basic strategies for teaching printing to students who need to learn to write. First, work with a handwriting chart. This chart is from the Laubach series. It shows the correct way to push the pencil to form the letters. And handwriting charts of the complete alphabet are readily available on the internet as PDFs that you can print out. Teach your student to look at the chart when they're working on a writing activity. If your student hasn't done a lot of writing, they may not have the fine motor skills needed to write legibly in a small space. You may need to start with writing larger and gradually work down to a normal size. Also, written letters do not need to be taught in alphabetical order. In fact, letter formation is better taught in the context of what the student needs, such as learning to write their name and address. Often teachers introduce letters that are formed with similar motions, such as B, P, G, and Q. Now I'd like to do a brief exercise with you. Hopefully you remember the activity from last week where you learned to read some Russian words. So these are paragraphs from that exercise. Pretend you are a beginning student learning to form letters. And Jenny won't be able to do this in her car. But take a piece of paper and a pen or pencil and write the sentence that is boxed in red. But in order to simulate the skill level of a non-writer, use only your non-dominant hand, the one you don't normally use to write with. So I'm going to give you a minute to try to write that sentence or part of that sentence. Okay, how did you do? How did that feel? Joy's laughing and shaking her head. Oh, Ellen is showing us what she did. Okay, so you probably weren't very happy with your results, I would suspect. And even to get not very great results, you probably had to concentrate very hard. Is that true? And that would be really, really tiring to do that for more than the 30 or 40 seconds that I gave you. If you tried to write this whole 2 paragraphs or something, you would probably really struggle. So we did this to put you in the shoes of the student, to show you how a student may feel when learning to write. And if you're working with a beginning student on their writing, it may help for you to reflect back on this experience.
One purpose for writing is to help organize thoughts and support memory. Under this category comes lists of all kinds: grocery store lists, to-do lists, reminders for appointments and schedules. So after basic letter shapes have been introduced, if needed, the curriculum materials guide students to practice writing until it is fully mastered. Here are some examples in the ESL Venture series of how writing practice is integrated for ESL students. The focus here is on organizing using lists. For the beginning basic literacy learner, writing emphasis is usually on mechanics, including capitalization, spelling, and punctuation, more than on letter formation. Most of our students know how to write. but not all. These skills are implicitly taught and reinforced through repetition, repetition, and repetition. For example, the copying exercise from the Challenger series helps the student learn the proper spacing between letters and words, and when to use capital letters and where to place punctuation marks. You should check to make sure the student has correctly copied the sentences and make note of any recurring or persistent errors, excuse me, such as reversing letters or dropping words or irregular sizing in the lettering. You can then extend the lesson by giving these issues special attention. Students benefit from practicing writing that helps them with activities and goals in their daily lives. These include such things as filling in applications, sending and replying to job-related emails, writing personal thank you notes, sending a note to a teacher or school, registering at the doctor's office, and many, many other daily tasks. In this ESL example, the student is creating a task chart to both help the student build vocabulary and to practice writing skills. And hopefully it may even contribute to the smooth running of their family. Yet another way to support students with their writing is to give them models or templates that they can imitate for content and style. For example, suppose your student needs to write an absentee note for their child at school. You could provide 2 or 3 examples of absentee notes to read. Discuss the different types of information found in each of them and any information that your student thinks should be added. You can use these models to create one specific template for your student. In the examples on the slide, the student would substitute their own information for the placeholders. You and your student could also brainstorm additional real-world writing situations where a template might be useful, such as sending a thank you note or filling out a form. Keeping with the theme of teaching writing for real-world situations, Ventures integrates writing assignments around issues that are likely to arise when people are new to an area. In this case, writing emails to a landlord about problems in a rented apartment. This ESL lesson for a high beginner student teaches the proper email format as well as new vocabulary. It may be difficult for many basic literacy students to express an opinion orally or in writing. Writing forces a student to slow down and think about each individual word. Teaching and writing begins with very basic sentences. In this activity from Challengers, basic literacy students are asked to respond to an opinion. Afterward, you can extend the lesson by reviewing the mechanics of their writing, such as punctuation and spelling. My experience has been that for most basic literacy tutors, the majority of lesson time is spent on reading, comprehension, and writing mechanics rather than on composition. But if you have an intermediate or advanced student who is ready to write paragraphs, or who would like to prepare to pass the GED or other certification, the supplemental Challenger Writing Series does provide many composition activities related to lesson topics. At first, both ESL and basic literacy learners may be reluctant to write. They will be fearful of making mistakes, and somehow things written in written format seem somehow more embarrassing than spoken errors. One idea is to start slow with activities that don't require a lot of formal grammar, such as lists or chart or applications. Use the activities in the students' books. Don't fill the paper with red corrections, but fix the most basic errors. Keep these papers to show them down the road how much improvement they have made. And remember that language experience, that's the LEA activities, can give students a great sense of accomplishment because they are working with you as a team. Oh, and here's some good news. We'll be looking at LEA in the very next topic. Are there any questions on what we've covered so far on writing? Any hands? Good, Emily.
In terms of teaching and correcting writing over, like if you're distance learning with a student, you know, how, I mean, do they just hold it up to the screen, or is that what? Yeah.
Well, they could, if you have the technology skills, something like Zoom or Google Meet has a blackboard or writing board, a whiteboard where the student can write and you can see it. They may or may not have that equipment and level, but I know that people who've used phones have been able to do it using WhatsApp, which, you know, we'll talk about later too. And even just holding the phone over the paper, it's a little clunky, but it works. Carolyn, do you have any suggestions?
No, you pretty much said it. We'll show you a couple of things in a minute when we talk about WhatsApp that might give you some ideas. You'll see a little video in the last segment that we do tonight that shows somebody doing a remote lesson that involves some writing. So,
okay, Susan, do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I just have a question about grammar. And, you know, all of us learned grammar probably in a very formal way, even if we don't remember it, with subject, object, verb, you know, those parts of speech. But we're not really, we don't really want to use those things in this approach. Is that right? Or would it be all right to say, well, a verb, you know, if you're trying to help somebody with composition, you know, and they're missing a verb or they're missing something, would it be okay to identify that as such, or is that too complicated?
Two comments. First, I hate to tell people that they shouldn't or can't do something, because you're the teacher and you're the one in the classroom at the time knowing what the student needs. Secondly, if they're writing compositions, they're not a beginning student.
Right.
They may be a high beginner. And in that case, I would say yes. I just wouldn't turn the whole lesson on a verb conjugation grammar lesson. You know, talk about the example that they're using and certainly explain the grammar if you think that they have the language to understand it.
it's fine.
Thanks.
It's fine, I think, to use terms like you'll probably talk about consonants and vowels and stuff like that. You use those words with your student, but you don't need to insist that they learn them right away. They'll absorb them over time, but you don't need to, you know, you can go ahead and use them and use it in context and they'll pick it up probably after a while. And I'd say the same goes with the grammar vocabulary.
Mm-hmm.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
Good questions. I think it's Catherine.
I am up. So let me share. Have I got that? Yeah, okay. Okay. So Lynn said that we are going to talk next about this language experience approach, which is, you know, just a sort of grandiose name for writing stories. And this is a different way of writing, which is to say that your student will tell you a story or, you know, likely an episode incident from their own lives. And you will write it down for them as they dictate it. And then the two of you will work on this together. And you might remember in the pre-workshop, there was a video that had a tutor using a language experience activity with a basic literacy student. So now we're going to highlight the same approach, but with an ESL student. So this is, well, for one thing, it's one of the most fun things you can do with your student. It's a lot of fun. You learn something about them. They enjoy sharing things. And it really works to improve their English, their vocabulary, their grammar, and so forth. And the student can see as you work on the story, as they've told it to you, as the two of you work on it together as a team, your student can see immediate improvement right there in that same lesson. And then you can continue to use that text in the future to build all kinds of approaches to things, reading, vocabulary, grammar, their own writing skills when they're writing for themselves. And it gives a student who has at least a little bit of English a chance to experience success in writing because they're not faced with the prospect of having to write it themselves. Okay, so this is one of my favorite videos. Here are a student and a tutor working together, creating a language experience story.
During a conversation, the tutor and learner discussed the learner's busy day. It involved a child's illness, which required the learner to call her employer and explain why she wouldn't be coming into work the next day. The experience story strategy flows quite naturally from this conversation and can be used to strengthen the learner's skills.
Katie, earlier you were telling me about Johnny, and he was sick today. And it sounds like you've had a very busy day today and a lot on your mind. Why don't we write your story down? And then we can use that for our lesson, okay? And maybe, you know, I have a pad here that you could write it down on. Oh, you?
I'm afraid of writing.
No, you're afraid of that. Okay, not a problem. No, yeah, that's fine. I'll write it for you, and then we'll look at it afterwards. Okay?
Yes,
How does that
yes,
sound? Does that sound like a good idea? Okay, good. Okay. Why don't you tell me the story then?
My son Johnny this morning went to school, but in the middle, middle of the school, a school nurse called my husband him.
Okay, Katie, just slow down just a little bit. So in the middle of school, the school nurse called your husband.
Let him come to school, take Johnny to home because he had a fever.
Okay. He had a fever.
Yeah.
Because he had a fever. Okay. Now, what's going to happen tomorrow, do you think? I mean, I know you go to work during the day. What do you think will happen? Okay, well, let me read the story back and we'll see if there's any changes that you'd like to make. Okay, Katie?
Yes.
Okay.
Good.
Okay. My son Johnny this morning went to school, but in the middle of school, the school nurse called my husband and let him take Johnny to home because he had a fever. Tomorrow, Johnny still need at home.
Excuse me, Dan.
Yeah, sure.
Can I make a change?
Yes, sure. Yeah, where would you like to make a change?
I want to say tomorrow Johnny still need two at home.
Oh,
Is
okay.
that okay?
Okay. No, here, let's look at this again. You want to say tomorrow, Johnny still needs to be at home? Still needs to,
stay.
oh, to stay. Oh, yeah, okay, very good. Let's put in to stay.
Stay.
Okay, good. Okay.
Stay at home and
And I will need school, need
I
call.
want.
Oh, I will need to call.
Yes,
I will need call
also
school.
change a little.
Yeah, sure, yeah.
I will need to call.
Okay, very good. Yes, we need to put two in there. We need to call school.
School.
Okay, and then Johnny will take one day off. Also, I need to call my boss, take one day off.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good.
Thank you.
Okay, Katie, now it's time for you to read it. Okay?
Okay.
Okay, sure.
My son Johnny this morning went to school, but in the middle of school, the school nurse called my husband and let him take Johnny to home because he had a fever. Tomorrow, Johnny still need to stay at home,
Very good.
and I will need to call
Very good.
my boss. I'm sorry. I need to call school. Johnny will take 1 day off. Also, I need to call my boss. Take 1 day off.
Very good. You did that very well. You did that very well. I'm just wondering though, if there's a line here, and I'm wondering if maybe you'd like to make a change here. We have the school nurse called my husband and let him take Johnny to home because he had a fever. I'm wondering if you'd like to make a change in that sentence there. Do you see anything you'd like to make a change in there?
Oh, you'll change it.
Would you like to, is there maybe an extra word there maybe you'd like to take
Yes,
out? Which word would you like to take out?
Take Johnny home.
Yeah, okay, very good. So we're going to
Take off the two.
take out the two. Very good. Yes, that's a good correction. We wouldn't need that there.
Yes, okay. And let's see to take Johnny home
Because he had a fever. Good,
because he has been.
very good. You did that very well. You did it very well.
Thank you.
So let's just think for a minute about what we saw there. Obviously, the tutor knew that the student had something on her mind, and he used this opportunity to do a language experience story, and probably she wouldn't have been able to focus very well on the subject matter of what the planned lesson had been. He writes the story down, and then notice the way, well, a couple things. Did you happen to notice the way as the video proceeds, and particularly after she knows she's not going to have to try to write it down herself, her demeanor changes, she becomes much more relaxed and she starts to enjoy the process. And then he gives her the opportunity to make changes in the story, and then he suggests some changes in the story. If you had a very beginning student, you might not want to keep changing and changing till it comes out perfectly. In this case, her English was not bad, and so they were able to come up with you know, a perfectly, or well, a very correct version of her story. That was all done gradually and gently, and it was really interesting. You might want to do this as the video suggests if you think your student has something on his or her mind. You might want to do it if your student seems like really tired, and this is something that will get them interested in the lesson and get their attention and focus, so they won't, you know, keep nodding off because they were up all night with the kids or working all night at one of their 3 jobs or something like that. There are a lot of circumstances under which you might want to do this, or just do it for fun. I mean, you don't have to have a reason to do it. Okay, so, and then one story, both in this lesson, and you can save it. I would, you know, keep a notebook, or have your student keep a notebook of their stories. And you can go back and use them in future, and it provides teaching moments for a lot of specific skills. You can look for a particular vowel sound or a combination of letters. You could have your student go through their story and look for prefixes or suffixes if you're talking about them. They could look for words that rhyme, or use words from the story and think of words that rhyme. There may be harder words here than they will write if they are having to write it down themselves. If there are grammar errors, you can design an exercise for them to show them the proper way to say something. I say the proper way to say something, but I should say the grammatical way to do something. Or you could do a follow-up activity, you know, maybe involving punctuation or a lot of other things. But remember just to do this the way that it works best for both of you. You can vary the language experience. There are a lot of ways to do it. Your student might want to tell you about some subject that they're particularly interested in. let me give you the example of one of our tutors and what she and her student did. Her student had pretty good reading skills, but she wasn't so good at speaking or understanding spoken speech or writing. So her lessons included a lot of conversation because she really needed to practice that. And during one discussion about weather and changing seasons and bringing in all that kind of vocabulary, she shared with her tutor in really halting English about how when she was growing up in Mexico, she and her mother would get up really early in the morning and in the spring and go out into the desert to harvest fruits from the local cactus. It was called the pitaya or dragon fruit. And with the tutor's help to figure out a few new words, she described where they found the cactus, what tool they used, how they prepared it to eat, and so on and so on. And she was very enthusiastic about this story because this was an important memory for her. So for homework that day, the tutor asked her to write what she had just shared using the new English words that she had just learned. And this was hard for the student. It was challenging for her. But at the next lesson, she had prepared an entire paragraph, step by step, in very short sentences, complete with drawings, which she had not been asked to do, of the plant and the long pole with a hook on the end that she and her mother used to grab the fruit. So that then the tutor used the story to help the student with her grammar and enhancing the short little sentences, making them a little bit more detailed, which is all part of this language experience approach process. But the student had enough language skill to enjoy writing her own sentences. It was an early victory for her as she was learning English. So as a tutor, take the various teaching techniques that we've been sharing with you during this whole workshop, and modify them as you need to help your student build the skills that they need, no matter what level, beginning, advanced, whatever level your student is, you can work with your student there. Are there questions about that or suggestions?
Okay, I guess we'll move on if there's no questions. That is a fun thing to do, and it's so easy. You can just do it anytime, and you may have to make suggestions to your student about a topic. Perhaps if it's off the cuff and they don't have something they're worried or concerned about, but maybe they'll come in and say they did some neat thing over the weekend or something, and you can have them tell a story about it, write it down and read it. And they can read at a higher level than their normal level when it's their own words.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's sort of an important piece there. Okay, so now we're going to, you know what I did? I didn't set myself up here correctly. Okay, we will try this again. And what's that? All right, so we've talked a bit throughout the workshop about using technology and online tools and resources for tutoring. Now we're going to talk more specifically about one of those called WhatsApp. Some of you may be familiar with that already, but we're going to do sort of a simplistic view of things for those of you who are not familiar with it. So WhatsApp is, I got ahead of myself. WhatsApp is a tool that you can use to communicate with your student, to share material related to your lessons. And many of you may be very familiar with it, but if not, I'll show you how it works and give you some ideas on how you might use it or other messaging apps with your lessons. we do take some risks whenever we use social media platforms. And the goal is to minimize risks as much as possible. So if you decide to use WhatsApp, you should definitely enable two-step verification since this can help with the security risk. And you should also check your privacy settings and decide who you want to allow to see your personal information. This can be limited to contacts only or to nobody. And decide if you want to enable live location. Of course, if that's turned on, just like with your phone in general, the phone is tracking your location. So why are we talking about WhatsApp specifically? First of all, most people from outside the US are already using it. Most of our ESL students use it. So they'll already be quite familiar with it. So they may be able to teach you how to use it. The app can be used to send large audio, picture, and video files. You don't need a phone plan to talk or video chat with this. The app uses the internet, so all that's required is an internet connection, and free Wi-Fi can be found in many places. For many of our students, this is the only technology they use, and it's free. There are a couple of limitations. It can only be used with other WhatsApp users, and you can't share a screen like you can with Zoom. You get the app from the Apple Store or Google Play for free again. And this is how it looks on your phone's desktop. Just like other message apps, you can set it up so that you can see when there's an unread message. A little number shows up on the icon. And when you click the app, this is what you see. So these are screenshots of the chat page on an Android and an iPhone. Although the layout of the app is slightly different on both of them, you see a list of people or groups that you recently chatted with, very much like your inbox and email. From here, if you want to chat with one of your contacts, just click on the previous thread. And settings are in different places on 2 phones, and we've highlighted them in a red circle. This shows an active text chat between 2 people. Conversations go back and forth. You type in the box at the bottom, and the reply comes on the opposite side in a different color. On the Android phone on the left, you can see a chat with Cassandra about dental school, and the iPhone on the right is a chat with Joan about skydiving. And the blue arrow, I don't see a blue arrow, I see a red arrow.
I see it, Carolyn.
Oh, there it is. Oh. The people are my little box showing the people is in the way, covering my arrow. The blue arrow is pointing to check marks on the message. So 1 gray check mark next to the message means it was sent. 2 gray check marks means the message arrived. And 2 blue check marks means the other person has opened the message. Okay. To delete a message that you regret sending, the red arrow, simply touch and hold the message. You'll get a pop-up that asks delete for me or delete for everyone. But keep in mind that even if you delete for everyone, it will delete the text only if the other person hasn't read it yet. On both phones, you'll see icons for chatting by voice or by video in the upper right-hand corner. Let's see. Click on the camera icon to video chat or the phone icon for voice chat. If you want to send a link, simply copy and paste the link in the box at the bottom. If you want to attach anything directly from your phone, like a photo or video or document, click the paperclip and you'll be able to search your phone. For example, if you want to send homework to your student, you can take a photo, crop it if you need to, and then send it as an attachment by clicking on the paperclip. Or you can send a picture of a page or document immediately without editing it or cropping it, just by clicking the camera icon at the bottom. And this takes a photo and sends it immediately. Okay, that was Android, and this is the iPhone, which has the same functions, but with a slightly different layout. So clicking on the plus sign opens a pop-up. It gives you options to do the same things. And these slides, there's copies of these slides on the pre-workshop page. So if you need to review this, you'll be able to see the pictures, the slides later on. Okay, one of the neatest things that WhatsApp can be used for is when a student is having trouble pronouncing a sound. If you want to send a recording to your student on an Android phone, hold the mic down and record yourself, and then click the little paper airplane. On an iPhone, hold the mic down when you speak, and when you release the mic, the recording is sent. If I were to send a text and a short audio to my student, this is what it would look like down here on the lower right corner. You can also video record your mouth, saying sounds or words. It can be really useful for a student to watch your mouth, as we mentioned when we discussed pronunciation. For example, for a student who has trouble pronouncing words that begin with the sounds b and or the B and the V, you can record yourself saying both words with your camera close to your mouth so that they can see the difference. To make a video, first record yourself on the video camera on your phone, save it, and then you can attach it. Or you can do a live video and send it immediately. You might want to practice doing this though before you try to actually do it, because it's sort of hard to get right. This is an image of what the video would look like on your phone. The beauty of this technique is that after the lesson, the student has a visual they can use on their own time and listen to it and watch it as much as they want. If you have something cool on your computer and you want to send it on WhatsApp to your student, there is a web-based version of WhatsApp. Go to web.whatsapp.com or just Google WhatsApp Web and follow the directions to link the app on your phone to your computer. The directions are easy. The app must be downloaded on your phone first. WhatsApp Web has now directed me to go to menu settings and select linked devices. And when you aim your phone at the QR code on the website, your WhatsApp account is linked up and magically appears on your computer. Oops. This is what you'll see on your computer. Do this. One advantage of using WhatsApp on your computer is that you can more easily type longer text. Some of us aren't all that great at quick texting on a tiny little cell phone. So you can also easily attach pictures or documents or anything really that you have on your computer but not on your phone. It's also easier to send website links. You can also use the app to share your students' work, either from this workbook or from the student's workbook or from papers you have sent. The student simply takes a picture and sends the finished work back. if you do send them papers, and that's one thing we've been doing. We either mail or drop off papers, or in the literacy offices, you can leave things for your student to pick up if they're able to do that. So that's one way to get things, physical things, to your student. So if you do send them papers, it's a good idea to write numbers on them for reference in case your student has trouble reading the titles of the pages. One of our tutors dropped off index cards at the student's house for her to practice with. The exercise was to put the cards in the correct word order. The student laid them out and either read them back to the tutor or sent a photo. You can practice synonyms, antonyms, rhyming words, and sentence structure. It's all examples of things that would work well with cards. And if you're using multiple sets, make them in different colors or make some identifying mark on them so they don't get all mixed up. Just because you send them neatly with a rubber band or paper clip doesn't mean they'll stay that way. So make it easy to sort them out. Oops. Sending WhatsApp messages can really help with communication. With a basic literacy student who doesn't read well and might not be able to read your messages, you can easily communicate with spoken messages. With an ESL student who is skilled on the smartphone and easily does Google Translate, and you'll be surprised that most of them can do this, text messaging allows them to easily communicate in written English. Before you can blink, they copy and paste what they translated. It is good for them to see it in English. It doesn't always translate cleanly, but then you have the basis for a good language lesson. Don't underestimate their skills in using technology to help them cope. The ESL students, a great many of them really are better at technology than their tutors. Another great use of WhatsApp is to confirm the next meeting by showing a calendar that you can both see. Students should know that they can message you if they have to cancel. If either one of you needs to change the time of the lesson or anything else, you can use WhatsApp to communicate. And always send a reminder for class the day ahead of time to remind them. So we just wanted to show you a little bit about how this messaging app works and give you some ideas on how to use it. You'll probably think of many other ways to use messaging apps with your students. So, any questions?
I just want to say that WhatsApp is a big part of my life. We have a lot of family members who live in other countries. And yeah, so, the phone calls are free. My daughter in Ireland and I text back and forth using WhatsApp a lot, but then she sends, a lot of pictures and videos of her toddler, and then we get on and, we can stay on endlessly while he runs around or laughs or screams or whatever he's doing, and it doesn't cost. Anyway, it's just a great way to stay in touch with people. So.
Okay. Well, if there's no questions on that, definitely practice with it. If you think you might use it, it's relatively straightforward. I've used it a little bit, not for tutoring, but I don't have time to tutor anymore. I haven't done that, but a lot, and you're going to see somebody use that shortly on a video too. So, okay. So we're going to move on to our last topic.
And
started. Are you going to do the slides, or you are? Okay.
Yeah, I will do the slides. And I am screen sharing, but wait, I don't see the. Oh, here it is. Okay. Okay, so Lynn and I are going to wrap up this evening and the whole workshop by telling you everything that you thought you were going to learn at the very beginning of the workshop. That is to say, how you get your student and how all this works and how the Literacy Council works and what you do at first and and all that kind of stuff. So far, as you have realized, we've concentrated on teaching strategies and activities, the content of what you're going to be able to do with your student. And you heard on the very first night about our students, or was it a Saturday? Anyway, about our students and how they're evaluated before you ever meet them. And now we'll talk about what happens next, how you get matched with your student, how to contact your student, how to prepare for and conduct your first few lessons.
Okay, so after the training tonight, you will be sent some forms, which we'll talk about in a little while. But when that happens and you submit the forms, after that, a coordinator will identify a waiting student that best fits with your preferences and availability. And by preferences, of course, I mean, do you want an ESL student? Do you want a basic student? Do you want an advanced student? Are you more comfortable with the beginning? Those kinds of things, which will be on one of the forms. The coordinator will look at all these and look at your experience and your interests. They'll also look at the characteristics of a student, like age and gender and language level. When a pair match is made, you'll get the student's information. If you agree to accept the student, the coordinator will answer all of your questions. She'll recommend instructional materials, tell you how to get them, and help you become familiar with them. She will also send an introductory email to you and the student so that when you do make contact, the student will be expecting your call and he or she will know who you are. When you're considering whether to meet with your student online or face-to-face, we do still follow the information, the guidance on the CDC, State of Maryland, the Frederick County Government and Health Information Guidelines. The Literacy Council does not ask about or track the vaccine status of students or volunteers. Pairs may discuss that status with each other if they're comfortable doing so. You and your student can choose to meet in person or virtually, but remember that the Literacy Council requires in-person meetings to be held in public places only. Now, by public places, it can be in an apartment if they have a meeting room or a study room, but not in the individual's house or apartment. Many of our tutors say that even with the option to tutor in person, they are continuing to meet virtually at least part of the time. Distance learning removes barriers such as transportation needs and childcare, so scheduling lessons for both people can be easier. Online tutoring, we've just talked about, can be done using a virtual meeting platform such as Zoom or WhatsApp or FaceTime or Google Meet, sometimes simply by phone. You've been given a lot of examples in the workshop of how to do that. And the interactive websites handout in the teacher's guide has links to two videos that provide more information about using various technologies for tutoring. Also, your coordinator again can guide you. When meeting in person, tutors usually meet once or twice a week for an hour or more, but some tutors have found that their students can focus on a virtual lesson for only about 30 minutes, so they meet more frequently for shorter periods. Just be flexible and figure out what works best for you and your student. There is no set rule.
Yeah, this period of COVID has, taught all of us a lot of things about how best to coordinate and meet with people or not meet with people. And we have discovered that some of our tutors, not a small number, are actually able to meet with their students more frequently, sometimes for shorter periods of time, because it's so much easier for their students to do a lesson from home. They don't, have to worry about childcare and all that sort of thing, which is a good thing. On the other hand, a personal connection is more easily established when you meet the person in person. So each student tutor pair has their own way of working. Okay, nitty gritty. This is important. Both literacy councils, Washington County and Frederick County, require their tutors to report their hours every month. And this is really easy to do. You'll get more details later, but you'll get an email once a month and there's a link to click and you can just fill in how many hours you spent. It only takes 5. My text here says 5 or 10 minutes. I'll be surprised if it takes you 10 minutes to do that. It's really easy to do that. And we use that for a lot of reasons, including just keeping track of our student tutor pairs and having the information when we're applying for grants or describing what we do and how much time our students and tutors spend together every year. So that's really useful information. Whatever your concerns at this moment or in the future, you've got a lot of friends at both councils who are ready to help you in any way. So here's my little spiel that I wasn't here for the first 2 lessons to give, but I have never been associated with an organization that is so uniform, that has such uniformly wonderful people. So there are a lot of people here to help, and your fellow tutors, both the new tutors coming into the program and the ones who are there, are can be of real help to you also. So in Frederick County, if you're in Frederick County, you'll have already heard from Victoria DeSantos. She is our program assistant who coordinates the tutor training process. And she'll follow up with you and with the tutor coordinators after this workshop to begin the matching process. And once you're matched, then your main contact, your first contact, will be your coordinator. In Washington County, you'll have already heard from Executive Director Jane Powell. And please reach out to her via phone or email with any questions and concerns. You also will have met Becky Hine, who's available for advice on teaching questions. Both Washington and Frederick County have in-house libraries available to all their tutors. And your coordinator will instruct you on how to browse and request materials and also give you advice about what materials you might want to use. Remember, and this is especially true with basic literacy students, you must protect their privacy. We promise them confidentiality. Many students are embarrassed by their reading level, or they could lose their job if it were brought to their employer's attention. We're very happy for you to talk about your tutoring process. And in my experience, all of our tutors love to tell people stories about, their interactions with their students, but please don't divulge a student's identity, even an ESL student. That's private.
Catherine, can I add something
Of
about
course, please
the
do.
reporting? Washington County, unless they've changed their procedure, you'll get an email from Jane requesting your hours every month. I don't think they have an online reporting system. So right. you will reply by email with your tutoring report.
Yeah, thank you for adding that. I wasn't thinking. Okay, so after you're matched, you'll be guided in contacting your student. The student will be excited to meet you. Your student might speak English with you. You might discover that you're speaking with your student's English speaking contact if they speak no English at all. When you introduce yourself, explain that you are their new teacher, because they're unlikely to know the word tutor. And the goal for the first contact is to make plans for the first meeting. You can talk with your student about when and how or where you will meet and what device or apps you'll use, if any. Please send your contact information to your student in a friendly follow-up text or email. And if they have trouble reading it, they probably know somebody who can help them read it. And include information about your upcoming meeting. Ask them whether it's okay to send a reminder on the day of the meeting. Keep the reminder very simple and very positive. Your first contact with an ESL student may be challenging. Phone conversations, and if you speak some of another language, you will have experienced this at phone conversations. In a phone conversation, it's a lot harder to understand a language that's not your first language. So if your student reads and writes some English or is handy with Google Translate, you might contact them via email or text instead, or as I said, talk with your students' English speaking contact to make the initial arrangements. You might also want to include that third person for the first few lessons until the student's comfortable with you. Some of our students can be extremely shy, but that's, you and your student will figure that out. Even with basic literacy students, be aware that your vocabulary is probably considerably larger than theirs. So use simple words and don't talk too fast to any student, and especially, oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay. Especially if you're at all nervous, the tendency is to talk quickly, but remember to speak slowly and clearly. Once you make contact and set up your first lesson with your student, let your coordinator know. So contact your coordinator and tell them that you have. If you don't get a response from your student after you've tried phoning or texting or emailing a few times, either in the beginning or even after you've been meeting for a while, contact your coordinator. Don't just give up in despair. She might be able to get you back in touch. And if not, she can match you with a new student. Please, please, please don't just give up and go away. We really, really need your help. There's a waiting list of students who are eager to get started, but sometimes things come up in our students' lives and occasionally a student disappears on us. Who knows why? They may well have moved or have taken on yet another job, or, there's no way of telling.
I think we need one more slide advance.
Oops, sorry.
That's okay. That's fine. Now I'm looking for prior to the first meeting.
Oh, that was the one.
Slide 6.
Okay.
There we are. Thanks. So most tutors will quickly establish a routine for collecting resources and supplies. Share useful organizational tips with your student to help foster good study habits. Because you want your student to respect your time, make sure that you're on time. Some of our students do come from cultures that have a different idea of when to arrive for an appointment, or they don't really understand the concept of volunteering. They may even think that you are being paid. It's important that they know you're a volunteer giving of your time, and just because you want to help them, and they need to respect that time by being prompt. This is also part of helping them understand our culture. If you need to, and we stressed this before, send a friendly reminder in advance of the session. It really helps.
I just want to add that for some of our students, the whole concept of somebody volunteering to help somebody else with a considerable amount of time and effort is just astonishing. and it's a really good lesson about life in America. So just wanted to add that.
Thanks. It's true. Very true. Okay, your first meeting should have several goals. First, it's important to get to know your student and to establish a rapport. It's important for both of you to feel comfortable. Second, begin the conversation about what they hope to learn and what their long and short-term goals are. And I do say begin the conversation because it's an ongoing conversation. The goals will change. Next, if you can, do a fun instructional activity or game, just so the student feels that they have already achieved something. These steps should help your student feel good about the lesson and begin to trust you as their teacher. Also, keep in mind that you may need to adjust your lesson if the content should be too easy or too challenging. Also, during the first lessons with your student, the amount of instruction will be less than in a normal lesson. And as you spend time getting to know your student, you'll develop a routine and the lessons will become more structured. So really, don't feel like you need to go in with a jam-packed lesson plan, and don't feel disappointed if you only get through half of it. That's completely normal. And the most important objective of the first lesson is to make sure there's a second lesson. That is what matters.
So the most important goal of the first contact is to set up a first lesson. The most important goal of the first lesson is to set up a second lesson. I'm sorry, I interrupted you, Lynn.
No, you're absolutely right.
Okay. So let's watch some excerpts from a video. This was online of a first meeting. Oops, I didn't mean to start it yet. This is a first meeting between one of our tutors and her student. As you watch, pay attention to how the tutor interacts with her student, what she does to put the student at ease, what information she shares, what activities she has planned, and then notice that the tutor says, "See you next week" at the end. We won't show it in the video, but the tutor used the WhatsApp calendar that you just saw in order to set up the next meeting.
How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm very good. And I'm very happy to meet you. My name is Charmy, and I'm your English teacher. What's your name?
Ekta.
Ekta. Nice to meet you, Ekta. First, I'll tell you about me, and then you can tell me about you. I'm from New York. I came to Frederick 2 years ago in 2018. I have 2 children, 1 son and 1 daughter. And here's my picture. And this is my daughter. Her name is Linda. And this is my son. His name is Adam. What about you? What country are you from? I'm from America. Are you from India or Nepal?
Oh, I am from Nepal.
Oh, Nepal. Tell me about your family. Do you have children?
Yes, I have 1 boy and 1 girl.
And what's your boy's name?
Ramesh.
Ramesh. And how do you spell Ramesh? Like, how can I write Ramesh?
Ramesh.
Ramesh. Ramesh. And how old is Ramesh?
6 years.
Oh, 6 years old. Okay.
Yeah, this is Ramesh.
Oh, you have his picture. Oh, he's beautiful. Aw, Ramesh, 6 years old. And do you have, what is your girl's name?
Susan.
And how can I spell her name?
Susan.
Susan. Okay. And how old is Susan?
8 years.
Oh, 8 years old.
This is Susan.
Oh, she's beautiful. Oh, 8 years old. Oh, thank you for showing me your pictures. Now, they go to school now?
Yes, and computer.
Oh my goodness, online. So they're in your house, going to school. And what grade is Ramesh in? Is he in 1st grade or 2nd grade?
Oh, he is 1st grade.
Oh, 1st grade. And what about Susan? What grade is Susan in?
3, grade 3.
Oh, wonderful. Okay. And your husband, is your husband here in Frederick?
Yes, he is a Frederick.
Okay. And what's your husband's name?
Harry.
Oh, Harry. Okay, excellent. All right, very nice. All right, now I'm going to share my screen with you so we can write about what we talked about. Do you see Charmy and Ekta? Do you see?
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
good. Okay. All right, first we'll write about Charmy, about me. And I'll say, my name is Charmy. Oops, Charmy. All right. So I wrote, my name is Charmy. My husband's name is Mike. We have 2 children. My son's name is Adam. My daughter's name is Linda. Okay, now we'll write about Ekta. All right. My name is Ekta. I'll read about mine and then we'll read yours. My name is Charmy. My husband's name is Mike. We have 2 children. My son's name is Adam. My daughter's name is Linda. Okay. All right. Shall we read together about Ekta? Okay. My
Name is Ekta. My husband's name is Hari. We have 2 children. My son's name is Ramesh. My daughter's name is Susan. We are from Nepal.
excellent, excellent. All right. Very nice. I want to ask you about your English. Where do you speak English? Where do you want to speak more English?
Oh, my children's school at store.
Okay, great. You want to speak with the teachers at your school and with people at your children's school, and you want to speak English when you go to the store.
Yes.
Perfect. Oh, excellent. Perfect. If you have any question or problem, or you want to change the time, you can call me on WhatsApp or on the phone, or you can send me a text on WhatsApp, and we can fix the problem. I'm so happy to meet you, Ekta, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.
All right, bye.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you.
Okay, so what are some of the things that Charmy did to put Ekta at ease? Oh, by the way, I should add, this was obviously an online first meeting. It was during COVID. You heard the mention of the children doing school from home. Not that it's not still during COVID, but the conversation didn't differ from what a conversation that you'd have in person. So how did you put her at her ease?
She offered information about herself first.
Right. Yeah, the relationship is, I mean, you're a teacher and she is a student, and students from some cultures will, be very reverential of teacher, but yet it's not at all like what we think of as a typical teacher-student relationship. You're two people working together. Anything else in particular you noticed about the way that she became acquainted?
I like how she shared photos.
Yeah, that was really great. Yeah. And she did have an instructional activity. I mean, that's not really the purpose of your first meeting, but why not? So she managed to have the getting acquainted part of their first meeting also be a learning experience. So so she plunged right in, and yet in a way it wasn't like, sitting down with the lesson and starting in with a page from a book.
So she would have had to, well, I guess she could see it on WhatsApp, because it looked like she was on Google Drive doing that activity.
Yeah, well, I think that was partly a little bit of cheating on our part, because we didn't make you watch the whole thing where she, writes it out. But yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But she would, meeting for the first time, you heard her ask how you spelled the children's names, for example.
Mhm.
Is that a way of getting to know what her skill level is too?
Yes.
Mhm.
Yes. And she gave the student the opportunity to talk about where she wanted to use her English, what her specific goals were. If she said, "What are your goals for learning English?" But in fact, she asked her where she wanted to be able to speak English. And at the store and at her children's school are 2 of the most common needs among our students. I mean, not all of them have children who are in school, but a lot of them do. And a lot of times that's what brings them, it's that desire to participate more in their children's lives that brings them to the Literacy Council in the first place. So I think we'd probably agree that that lesson was a success. And what was the thing that you're supposed to be sure to do during the first lesson is to make sure there's a second lesson. And you're absolutely not supposed to use those kinds of leading sentences with your students. I just did a pedagogically really bad thing. If you say to your student, you're supposed to, they're likely to get confused. You should just ask them the question, what are you supposed to do during the first lesson for sure? So, so don't do what I did. And we all had teachers who were always asking like those kind of leading questions, and it's really annoying.
Good morning.
Oh, sorry, my computer is not, there we go.
I think one more slide.
Yep, there we go.
Okay. Okay, just in case you missed it the first 3 times, more lesson ideas for first meetings. To help your student feel more comfortable, you may want to get together a few times before you jump into formal lessons. But here are some suggested activities for the first few meetings. You may not use them all, but remember, it's always better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. A brief activity centered on introductions can be helpful, and this is what we saw in the video with Charmy and Ekta. For basic literacy students, the introductory conversation could focus on educational experiences, work, or areas of interest like hobbies. Talking to students about their daily life is a great way to start instruction that uses everyday vocabulary. The language experience activity we saw in the video was just that an example. You can also share interesting photos of people, places, events, or daily routines. Ask questions that give you a better idea of the student's English language skills, and that was also illustrated in the video. For example, the image on the slide here provides opportunities to talk about food, location, activities, clothing, weather. This activity also works well with basic literacy students to give you a sense of the breadth and depth of their spoken vocabulary. Or you may want to explore their fluency and comprehension levels with a very brief think aloud or duet reading activity. Okay. Whoa, look at all those topics. This is a summary highlighting topics covered during the pre-workshop PowerPoints and this workshop. It's a long list and you have really achieved a lot. It's expected that you're going to have many questions when you begin tutoring. Everybody does. But I think you can feel confident that we have introduced you to the teaching principles, the strategies, the activities, and the resources that you need to get off to a good start. And if you want it, ongoing support is always available. Now, before we show you the next slide, please get a piece of scratch paper and something to write with. I'll give you a couple seconds. Okay, I hope you're ready.
I don't think everybody's quite back.
Oh. And remember, Ginny, you're not going to answer this.
Yeah, I was going to say that kind of gives it away, doesn't it? But I was going to say, Ginny, I understand that you read Russian, so you don't get to do this. Okay.
It's the very first time I ever had anybody translate that sentence, not using Spanish.
Okay, so we have a little checkup here. These words should look familiar, and I will put them up on the screen one by one. On your paper, please write each word in English as it comes up. Oh, people are writing, my gosh.
Good.
You guys are going to be too smart for us.
Well, you know something, we showed them the chart again a few minutes ago when we did writing.
And number 5. Okay, how did you do? Ginny accepted. Who can tell me the first word? Yeah, go ahead. Just sing out, Emily.
Well, I lived in Russia for 2 years, so I.
Okay.
Would
But
it
I
be,
can't do it.
would it be boy?
Yes, good. Okay, the next one.
Chip.
Oh, excellent. Okay, this one.
Ladder.
Okay, this one.
Chair.
Yeah, this one.
Rope.
Okay, now you guys are supposed to sit there with your jaws hanging open in complete consternation. This didn't work. You guys have really good memories, or relevant experience, I should add, perhaps. But this exercise should have reminded you, whether it did or not, how difficult it is for adults in particular to remember things that they've learned recently. As a tutor, you may have taught a great lesson and your student may have known everything perfectly at the end of the lesson, but when they come to the next lesson, they may have forgotten everything. And, you know, as an adult, I mean, we're all different ages, but the older you get, it harder it is to remember. And I had a student once who had studied English in her 20s. She could speak it, but she couldn't really read and write. And then she'd had 2 children. And when I was teaching her, she was raising 2 children and working nights. And she would look at me in bewilderment. She said, I did so much better before. You know, why can't I remember? And I said, because you're older and you're not getting any sleep. Plus, you know, if you have children, that occupies a huge part of your brain. So your students have lots of reasons that have nothing to do with their abilities or their seriousness about learning or your ability to teach. So, you know, just be patient. Occasionally somebody gets a student who remembers everything just like, you know, right out of the starting post, but that's pretty rare.
And you probably, if you did know them, you probably used, thought back to the pictures to remember these words.
Aha. Oh, Joy, I love that nodding. Thank you. Yeah, so remember that that most people probably tend to be visually learners and to need as many devices as possible to remember things. Also, just a reminder, sometimes a tutor and student can meet only once a week, but meeting twice a week is better. 2 shorter lessons is better than 1 long one.
Okay. Earlier, I talked about some important paperwork to complete before you can be matched with a student. In Frederick County, now this is Frederick County, Washington County is different. In Frederick County, within a few days, you'll get an email from Victoria with 2 attachments, the tutor agreement form and the indemnity and release agreement. These will have to be signed and returned, and they can either do that electronically or by snail mail. The email will also include web links to the online tutor information form and the online tutor training evaluation form. Now, the tutor information form is where you'll tell us what we need to know and how, so that we can match you with a student, such as your availability, what days, what times. We always are looking for evening teachers, and your preference for tutoring, either an ESL or basic literacy student or both. There's also room to list any special activities or experience. And please, anybody who has another language or spent time in another country, let us know. Sometimes we have students waiting, and that might be a good cultural match there. The more specific you are, the better the match. Right now, there is a waiting list of ESL and basic students in Frederick County. Okay, I'm going to take that back. We actually don't have a basic student at this point waiting. If you want a basic student, put that down, but I also recommend that you open yourself to an ESL student as well. All of our tutors have experience that will benefit their students. There are a few positions, such as teaching classes or small groups, which are opportunities for experienced teachers. There is a place on the online tutor information form to indicate your preference for either one-to-one teaching or small group teaching or whole class teaching. Remember that a whole class is 4 to 10 students. If you're in Washington County, you will receive the indemnity and release agreement by email for you to return. Their email will also include a link on the online training evaluation form. Now, this tutor training evaluation form is for us, your trainers, and it helps us refine and improve our training process. Please give it your honest opinion and serious consideration, because we do look at it and your feedback matters. Once you have submitted the forms, it may take up to 2 weeks before you hear from your coordinator about a match. We're really busy in the office right now, so please be patient. If anything in the meantime changes with you, please let the office staff know. And that would be Victoria would be your first go-to. Any questions on what I just went through? And don't worry about it, because you get the email, it will spell it all out. So I'm just, if there's any confusion. Okay.
Lynn, I'd like to add one thing.
Sure.
Don't be scared about working with a beginning student. People tend to think that's going to be a lot harder. It really isn't. In some ways it's easier because you don't have to figure out what they do and don't know. If they're real beginners, you just know that you have to start at the beginning and teach them everything. So don't let that that worry you. It's not harder than teaching a more advanced student. It's just different.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for adding that, Carolyn. That's important. Okay, so in this workshop, we have inundated you with information. We don't expect at all that you will remember it all. Occasionally there might be a faint bell in the back of your head ringing that says, oh, I think maybe they taught us something about this, and I'm going to look back through the materials and look it up. And you have plenty of materials to look through. When you're assigned a student, your coordinator will give you further help in understanding what that particular student is likely to need, and they will recommend specific materials for you to start with. Now, if those materials, as you've heard before, if those materials turn out to be too simple or too advanced or otherwise not appropriate, then you can always change it up. But you will be given ground to stand on. And they'll also be there to support you when you have any questions, whether it's contacting your student or with materials, or, any question or a particular difficulty that your student has and how you might address that. So be sure and contact your volunteer coordinator when you have, you do know our volunteer coordinators are volunteers, by the way. They're volunteer coordinators, and they spend huge amount of time working on this, but they're always very happy to talk with tutors about the best way to deal with things that come up. And we really encourage you to take advantage of our professional development sessions and our tutor chats, and you will receive information about those to broaden your knowledge. And we would like to end, or almost end.
I'm sorry, Carolyn, I've got, Catherine, I've got one more correction.
Yeah.
When I said that right now we don't have a basic student waiting, that is Frederick County. Now, Washington County has 50-50 ESL and basic, and I actually don't know what their status is as far as their waiting list goes. So if you're from Washington County and you're concerned, you could call Jane Powell and talk to her if you're not sure how to sign up. Okay. Okay, great.
Yeah, thank you, Lynn.
Okay.
Whom you will recognize as one of the speakers in this video. We thought you might just like to hear about some of the experiences that our tutors have had.
The day after I retired, I knew that one of the things I wanted to do was to help people learn how to read.
I think anyone who is even thinking about being a tutor shouldn't hesitate. For me, it's been a wonderful experience.
So I like to see it when people get excited, when they discover things, when they think, oh, that's how it works. And you get to see the smile on someone's face. You get to see the light bulb go off. You get to see that aha moment. Really, you don't need a doctorate to be a reading tutor. You know, you need to have passion for it. It's also good because you see results. You get to know the people and you can see results fairly quickly. Reading was something that has been a joy and a blessing all my life. And I knew that I wanted to have other people have that same joy.
My experience as a tutor was amazing. And I encourage everyone to become a tutor, take that opportunity.
The staff here very much appreciate the work of the tutors, and they're here to help us. When I first worked with my English student, he substituted words, he didn't retain much, and I was very concerned about how was I going to help him retain, what was the issue, and there were specialists here that could address that.
You want a particular kind of a book, you need a resource, there's libraries and there's meeting rooms, and so it's all the support that you would need.
Making a difference with particularly my student that I'm working with is just wonderful. I've been working with him primarily on enunciation and pronunciation and speed of speech. He's the age of my son. And so we have that kind of relationship, and it's wonderful. He's a terrific guy. And we get a lot done.
It's rewarding. You know, I feel like when I'm tutoring and I come back, I've gotten something done that isn't about me.
I want to say it's all about me. I mean, because I get so much from it, but I know it's about them.
I like the relationship, the one-on-one.
One of them, one of us. And you form that human relationship.
My students, they are like a family for us.
Literacy Council is an absolute resource to Frederick County citizens. And anyone that doesn't take advantage of it as a student or as a volunteer is missing out on a wonderful opportunity.
I love to listen to Lynn and the rest of the tutors speaking there. Okay, so first an admonition. Please, as soon as you receive the forms via email, return them so we can go to work on matching you up with a student. And then, even more important, what questions do you have about anything at all? Yes.
I was just wondering if there's any kind of common missteps that people take, like maybe the first 3 to 5 sessions with someone as a new tutor, that kind of come to mind, and if you have any ideas of how to mitigate that a little bit. Makes sense.
That is a great question, isn't it?
It's a wonderful
Really?
question. I haven't heard it before.
I haven't, I don't know of anything particular. You know, it's just a matter of just being nice to people, you know, and trying to help them, and a reciprocal thing. You know, I mean, tutors certainly are going to not know everything or make mistakes or whatever, and you just own up to it, laugh about it, and say you'll find the answer, and
Okay.
you know, that sort of thing.
I might suggest that if your student doesn't work out for some reason, don't take it personally. It does happen for very good reasons. And sometimes we will lose a tutor who will be discouraged. Don't let that happen to you if you can. Okay. Maybe that's the one thing I would hope wouldn't happen.
Well, and I would add that, of course, you want to be prepared for your lessons. And a common, I won't call it a mistake because it works out fine, but a common occurrence is for you to imagine that you're going to be able to cram more into a lesson than you will. And so if you have planned your first 3 lessons, those might well turn into your first 9 or 10 lessons.
Very true.
But that's fine because, you know, you've got the stuff there.
And that's the beauty of the literacy councils, is that you don't have to adhere to any timetable. You go at the student's pace. So
Yeah, and that varies so widely from student to student.
I'd love to tell you just real quickly about Sylvia, who was in that video. Earlier, I think it was Catherine said something about it being common to for a parent to want to talk to people at the children's school. Sylvia was an attorney in her native country, and she came here not knowing English. And she, of course, wanted to talk to her son's teachers, and her English was very poor. And her son finally told her, "Mom, don't go to school. It's embarrassing because you don't speak English." And that's when she came to the Literacy Council. That's what made her come, because her son was embarrassed about her language skills. So she went on to, volunteer with the council, and she became a tutor herself. And she's going to headed toward law school here. She's really, really kind of a star, but that's how she got started. So, and for such an educated woman and for
beautiful and
yeah,
charming and
yeah. So Sylvia's just a neat story that I just wanted to share that with.
Well, that makes me want to share the story about Ivan. He's the student in the video with Michael, the male tutor. And Ivan was a refugee from Venezuela. He was threatened with death by the government. And he was an educated guy who could read and write some English, but he just rattled on. You couldn't understand a thing he said. And so his tutor, worked with him. And he was an educated radio. He had his own radio program. That's how he got in trouble and so forth. And he started out in this country working as a busboy. And so he hasn't only managed to, climb the employment ladder and provide for his family and have a pair of twins after he got here. He and his wife and his son, and then the twins, but he has plunged into volunteer work in the community. So he and his wife have given free theater lessons to families in Baker Park. He's volunteered at schools, at FCC. He is part of the Met Theater Ensemble. And he talked them into doing their first bilingual production, which was for families. And he played the king in a fable in the theater. And he has a weekly Facebook TV program that goes out to other Venezuelan immigrants, encouraging them. He says, learn English, obey the law, work in your community. So our students really do we make a difference in our students' lives, and they make a real difference in the community.
Before we forget, and before anybody signs off, we would like to take a screenshot of the class, sort of a graduation picture. If everybody would give us a smile. Hopefully nobody minds.
Oh, who's doing that?
Are you doing that? I'll do it. You ready? Okay, let me make sure. Let me paste it in my email and make sure it came out okay. Make sure I didn't goof. Yep, there you are.
Okay.
Okay. Wonderful, thank you. Okay. Oh, Susan was still blank there. Susan, you want me to do it again?
Yep.
I think you got me.
I think your hand was up.
Okay, let me do another one. Everybody pose again. 1, 2, 3. Okay, let me try that one again here.
What a great bunch of people. I'm really sorry I wasn't here for the first two sessions.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me see here. Having trouble getting my.
This group really paid attention and asked the best questions ever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is weird. My email is. Oh, there. Okay. All right. Got it. Got two of them. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. I look forward to meeting you in person one place or another.
And
Okay, thank
if anybody
you.
has a question, go ahead.
Thank you.
Otherwise, we'll sign off.
Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Good night.